We've done it, guys. We have achieved the end of Scooby Apocalypse. This is the finale. I'm going to give you a quick recap so you can catch up on it, but the concept of Scooby Apocalypse is that there is a nanite virus that went out and turned people into monsters. The Scooby Gang is some of the lone survivors out there, and the Scrappy and Scooby are slightly intelligent due to a chip in their brain. Last time on our episodes, Scooby got super intelligent, and Scrappy has rejoined the group, and we discovered that Fred is not quite as dead as we thought. And today, we're going to conclude Scooby Apocalypse. We are officially coming to the end. So the whole playlist is going to be down below so you can enjoy this, but if you're wondering where you are, this is the Comicstorian channel, where we take a lot of your favorite pop culture lore, from comic books to video games to music, and we break them down into audio dramas. Well, let's begin the ending. In our last video, Daphne faced one of her greatest fears, the reanimated corpse of her fiancé, Fred Jones. Fred led a small group of monsters to capture her in hopes of having her see that being infected was not an entirely bad thing. But what's more, Velma's brother Quentin has resurfaced, along with the once thought dead Rufus. As the monsters stand guard around the East Greenbush home, Daphne struggles into restraint, shouting to Fred to get the damn ropes off. And Fred tells her, "Of course, my love, only if you promise to behave." She yells to stop calling her that. He isn't Fred. Fred died months ago, and he is nothing more than a nanite-infested fake. Fred kneels down beside Daphne, asking, after everything they've been through, all the mysteries they've investigated, she never truly believed any of them, did she? She's just as cynical as her father. She spits in Fred's face, telling him to go to hell, and Fred wipes his face off, stating that he understands she's upset. But he is still the same Fred she once loved and promised to marry. If she insists on rejecting him, well, one of the monsters stands up by lifting its claws into the air, and Daphne quietly closes her eyes and waits. A few moments later, she looks around at the candlelit dinner and says this is not what she was expecting. One minute he's threatening to kill her, and next he's serving her up dinner. Fred tells her that his associates can get a bit carried away. They're very protective of him, but he would never let them harm her. Now let them relax and enjoy a meal. She scoffs, stating that she doesn't want his canned ravioli and string beans, and Fred asks what can he do to convince her that it's still him inside. The only thing that's changed is his perspective. When the nanites embedded themselves into him, they gained access to his thoughts, feelings, and memories. They reactivated his nervous system, and Daphne stops, telling him, "They made you a puppet. You're just a nanite Pinocchio pretending to be a real boy." Fred asks, "Pretending? We've achieved awareness, full consciousness," and she stops him, asking, "Which is it? We or I?" Fred pauses and then says, "We are both." He stands up, turning on the stereo, telling her that he wants to renew their acquaintance properly. Join him for a dance? He holds out his hand, and Daphne asks, does she really have a choice? Daphne stands and takes Fred's hand, and as the two move together, Daphne lunges for the knife on the table, stabbing it into Fred's chest. And he stares, pulling the knife out, telling her that she's entirely missing the point. Since he's already been killed once, he can't be killed again, not while they are inside of him. If she wanted to have a decent stab at it, pun intended, she should have gone for his heart. But she doesn't want to kill him. How could she? Not when she still loves him. Daphne stops, letting the words sink in, and then she comes to the realization that she can't. She runs towards the door and jumps out. She runs down the street and she hears a rumble, and she asks what took them so long. And down the street, Shaggy speeds by while Scrappy hangs out the window, mowing down a path for the mystery machine. Shaggy stops right next to Daphne, and Scrappy asks, "How you doing, Red?" And Daphne yells, "Better now!" As soon as Daphne jumps in, the winged monster takes to the sky to give chase. A short drive later, Daphne asks, "You're pregnant?" And Velma tells her, it sounds like she's horrified. Daphne tells her no, she just doesn't seem interested in men is all. As Velma hangs out the window to shoot, Daphne tells her she's really happy for her. Scrappy then asks, "Can we cut the chattering and focus here? In case you haven't noticed, those things are diving right towards us." As everyone is about to escape, Shaggy steps on the brakes, stopping just before hitting Fred, who's standing in the street. Daphne shouts to just run him over, and Shaggy tells her no. Fred falls to his knees and holds up his arms, stating, "I surrender." Everyone gets out of the mystery machine, and Shaggy holds up a gun to Fred, telling him not to move. He begins to tell them that if they would just give him a chance to explain, then they could. But just then, everyone begins to hear a faint whoop, 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 and it begins to get louder and closer. Scrappy sighs, asking what now, and a few seconds later, a helicopter lands in the middle of the street. Everyone gets ready to open fire, but as the person comes out, Velma says, "Oh my God." Velma's brother Quentin steps out, stating that he's kinda disappointed that she would invoke the deity. After all, their family has a long history of militant atheism. Velma then stares at the charred body of Rufus, asking if it's him, and Quentin says indeed it is. Scooby-Doo has been reporting back to them regularly, and just so you know, he was protecting you. Daphne shouts, "What is this about?" And Quentin tells her, "I'll tell you everything. After I've killed your boyfriend." Quentin takes out a gun, firing at Fred's neck, severing it from his shoulders, causing it to fall off and roll away. He then says, "Now they can talk." Shaggy charges at Quentin, shouting, "You killed him! You killed Freddy!" But before Shaggy could even choke, Fred's voice tells him, "I really appreciate the outrage, but it's not necessary. Just as I was explaining to Daphne before she enthusiastically stabbed me, I'm already dead. As long as the nanites are inside of me, I will live again." Seconds later, the nanites pour out of Fred's body and they lift the severed head, attaching it to the shoulders. He stands back up, telling them, "Even if you tried, I cannot be killed again." Velma yells at Quentin, asking, "What the hell? We've been out here for years, struggling to survive while you..." But before she could finish, Rufus grabs onto Velma, yelling, "Sister!" She struggles to free herself, shouting for him to let go, and Shaggy quietly steps in, breaking the two of them apart. Rufus then begins to sob, asking, "What did Rufus do wrong?" Quentin pats Rufus's back, telling him not to cry. They both know that Velma has always been a trifle cold. She doesn't mean to be hurtful. Daphne grabs her gun, pointing it at Quentin, telling him that he is coming back to the mall to explain all of this. And so is Fred here. Shaggy whispers to Scooby, stating, "Is this like as weird as it's gonna get?" And Scooby tells him, "It's actually a lot weirder than that." Later in Velma's office, Velma asks, "Well?" And Quentin says that it's a long story. She yells that they have all the time in the world. How about they start with Rufus? They saw him die. How is he possibly here? How can he even be alive in that condition? And Rufus starts stating, "Alive! Alive! Rufus is alive!" Shaggy then asks, "Is there any way that Rufus could, wait outside?" Other than being totally creeped out, Rufus kinda has a bit of a stench on him. Quentin tells Rufus to wait outside, and as he turns back, he tells Velma that Rufus is alive because of a vaccine, one developed by the complex to counteract the nanite plague. Outside in the common area, Scooby runs up to Scrappy, and Scrappy asks, "What do you want? To say how much of a miserable traitor I am?" Scooby tells him, "Of course not. I have more faith in you than that. Truth be told, I've always looked up to you, respected you even." Scrappy asks, "How could you? I always picked on you and made your life miserable." Scooby continues on, "Even though that is true, I still admired your strength and determination, even under all that temper and bluster. Well, there was a good and decent soul in there. You've proven that time and time again, Scrappy. So whatever your involvement with Quentin is, I believe it was for the greater good. Now tell me what exactly happened back then." Scrappy sighs and says, "Back in Washington when I saved you all from the mob of beasties? Well, you all left me for dead, and I don't blame you. I should have been dead. But somehow, I clawed my way out. I hid in the woods licking my wounds. I was hurting, bad. Fever, implants failing, intelligence was fading. I wandered for weeks, but somehow ended up in Sacramento with another pack of monsters attacking. I couldn't fight back, not in that condition. But then a tiny drone appeared in the sky and started to shoot all of the beasties. It was like a tiny metal angel. So I followed the angel straight to paradise. And that paradise was a secondary installation called Complex Beta. Not even Doc knew about it. But her brother sure did. He healed my wounds, repaired the implants, and treated me with real kindness. We both know how it is when you're a dog. A human treats you right and you're gonna be loyal to the end." Scooby then says, "Why did he send you over to watch over us? What does Quentin want?" Scrappy tells him, "I think he found a way to save the human race." Meanwhile, in another back room with dozens of guns pointed at him, Fred says that he can assure them that there is no need for weapons. He is no threat to anyone. Daphne tells him that he's a threat to the whole damn planet. Fred leans in, stating, "No, I'm not. I am humanity's redeemer." Daphne pulls back, punching Fred with all her strength, and as Fred gets up, he says, "I really hope that made you feel better." Daphne then asks, "How is it any different than before? Packs are always wandering near the mall." And the guard yells, "That's not it. It's like they're gathering with intelligence, a purpose." Daphne spins back, demanding to know what is going on, and Fred tells her, "Nothing. I can only control limited groups of those things, and I have to be close to them to do it." After a few moments pass, a realization comes over Fred. Oh no. Oh no, he's here! He's here! Daphne asks who, and outside the nanites begin to swirl around, creating a being. And after a blinding light fills the area, a tall creature wearing a crown stands up. Fred yells that it's the Nanite King. The king, he's far more powerful than the nanites that resurrected him, and the only way that we can defeat him is if we work together. Daphne asks how, by letting him infect all of them with his nanites, turn them into whatever the hell he is? And Fred yells, "If you don't, humankind is doomed, it's our only way." Daphne tells him that what she sees is that they've survived this long on their own, and they sure as hell don't need him and his inhuman masters. She then turns to leave, telling the guards to come with her. They've got a war to fight. Elsewhere in the mall, Velma asks, "So there is a cure, and you kept it from us, Quentin?" And he says, "Yes, a failsafe, just in case things went wrong." She yells at him, "If you couldn't tell, you altering my programming made this." And Quentin says that he's quite aware of his sins. No need to bring them back up. As for the antidote, it was in the early experimental stages. No one knew if it would even work. But Rufus, well, they all know how he is. He pushed, he bullies, he demanded, and he used it on himself. However, it didn't work. The serum increased his body's ability to heal itself, which is why he didn't die in the fire. Except that's not why Rufus didn't get infected by the plague. It was just luck. Like all of you, something in his biology, some natural immunity that resisted the infection. The cure, though, was destroying him from the start. He slowly became more erratic and unstable. Just then, everyone hears clang, 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 and Shaggy asks, "Is that a dinner bell, or are we under attack?" Velma says that if that's the dinner bell, then they are the dinner. Outside, the Nanite King calls out to his monsters, telling them to do what their kind does, destroy. And when they're done, they will bring this cleansing to every remaining human enclave on the planet. When they have all been eliminated, these once humans, these insatiable monsters, will be terminated as well. And then, the plant life will remain. The birds in the air, the fish in the sea, the beasts of the land. But man will be no more. Back inside, monsters begin breaking into the settlement, attacking and killing everyone on sight. Velma yells to Daisy to set off the charges, but she stops and asks what about their people that are still up there. Velma shouts that they're already dead. They have to save the rest. Now set them off. Seconds later, explosions begin going off on the top floor, setting everything on fire. Velma then tells everyone that they've reached the armory, but before they can get that far, the group is stopped by a pack of monsters. Shaggy says, "We are totally screwed!" But just then Daphne runs through, opening fire, shouting, "Just die, you sons of die!" Daisy starts backing up, stating, "This is it, we're all gonna..." And that's when a monster jumps out to attack her, but before it can grab her, Rufus grabs it by the head, slamming it on the ground, stating, "Stay away from Daisy." Daisy looks back, asking if it's really him, and Rufus tells her, "Always protect you." As the swarm starts to get closer, there's a loud hum that fills the air, and the monsters suddenly stop. The nanites begin to get pulled out of their bodies, and they begin to fall. All of the nanites then start to enter Fred's body. Daphne stares for a moment, and he says that he saved them. Fred tells her that she can thank them later, once they get out of this mess. But just then, everyone hears loud tombs as the walls of the mall begin to shake. Shaggy shouts, asking what now? And Daphne says the whole damn mall is starting to crack and crumble. Velma asks what is causing this, and Fred tells her, "It's him, the Nanite King." Outside, the Nanite King beats his fists into the ground, sending shockwaves into the mall, shaking it down to its core. And that's when the mall collapses. Later, down in the sewers, everyone stares blankly, with Daphne clenching her fists, asking how did this happen? The compound was destroyed and dozens were killed, all because of that Nanite King. And when they get out of here, Fred tells her that they can worry about revenge later. Right now, their focus has to be on survival. Daisy asks how is Cliffy doing, and Shaggy says he's still in shock, not sure what to... Wait, what's that ahead? Fred holds his hand up to light the way, and Quentin hugs Velma, stating that he thought she was dead. He's lost enough family to this nanite plague, he can't lose her too. Daphne then asks, does anyone know the way out? And Scrappy says that he's been in and out of this place for months. He can lead them back out. Scooby then says the problem that they face isn't getting out alive, it's what on the other side is waiting for them. Once the group reaches the exit, Daphne pushes the sewer lid to Scout, but before she can get out, she freezes in place. She looks around the mall, and all she can see is destruction. Both human and monster bodies are scattered across the wreckage. Daisy asks, are they the only ones left? And Quentin tells her that it would appear so. Fred looks down at the destroyed mystery machine and says that it's strange. He almost feels as if he just lost a friend. Daphne reaches down, placing her hand on his shoulder. After a few moments, she quickly pulls away, realizing that it's still a dead Fred. "Stop that!" she shouts to him. He asks what is she talking about, and Daphne tells him, "Stop acting like you're human! As if you're him!" Fred says that he fought beside them. He did everything in his power to save them, and she still doesn't believe him? And Daphne yells, "No! And I never will!" Scrappy looks around, stating that it looks like the Nanite King took his army and left. "So that means we won, right?" Quentin says that he can keep on thinking that, but just then the roar of a jet can be heard. Shaggy asks, "What's that?" And as the jet begins to land, Quentin says, "Hope." Velma then asks, "Were you the only one left at the Sacramento compound?" And Quentin straightens his tie, stating, "No, there's a small group stationed there. My coming to Albany was just a prelude to bring you back with me.
Unfortunately, that army of monsters interrupted my plans. Everyone begins to board the jet, and as Fred begins to walk around, Scrappy turns back asking where the hell does he think he's going. Daphne tells him it's okay. Let him through. And Scrappy then asks, "Are we really doing this?" Daphne says whatever he is, the nanites embedded within him aren't pledging to the king. They need all the knowledge of the enemy. So come on, it's time to go. Elsewhere in the world, the Nanite King sits on his throne plotting. He looks over his minions, stating that the humans are just insects. They get stepped on, and somehow they manage to crawl away. They're broken, mourning, terrified of what the future will bring. Let them simmer in their pain and uncertainty for a bit. The king holds out his hand, allowing the nanites to construct a head, and the head then asks if they're going to eradicate them once and for all, and the king says precisely. They will then spread across the globe, exterminating all remaining pockets of humanity, and then only we will remain. He steps down from his throne, and the head asks, what about the beasts that they have bent to their will? The king says, they were efficient weapons against the Albany encampment, but we have many weapons at our disposal. The head then tells him that even though they are plague-induced, they are human after all. And the king begins sucking up the nanites from the monsters in the room, stating, which means that they too must be eradicated. The Nanite King's cape then turns into wings, and as he flies off, he tells himself, there's one last thing that I must do before the final slaughter. Over in Complex Beta, Velma looks at all of the computers, stating that it is amazing. It's even more impressive than her lab in Nevada. With all of this, she can work on perfecting the cure and reversing the plague. Quentin tells her that he's had his scientists working on a cure for years, and time and again, they have failed. Velma then says that it's because she wasn't the one doing it. Shaggy then says, how about they get some rest? It's been days since we slept, but Velma turns back shouting, why don't you all just go away so I can do my damn job? Without saying a word, everyone slowly backs off and leaves, and she gives the group one last glance before turning to her computer. Some time passes, and while she works, she hears the door open. She looks back and says that she's so sorry, Shaggy, she didn't mean to, but a shadow looms over her, telling her that she doesn't need him. She doesn't need any of them. She only needs us, Mother. Before Velma could have a chance to react, the Nanite King appears before her, grabbing her by the throat. She begins to struggle, trying to free herself, shouting, I am not your mother! And the Nanite King tells her, yes, in fact you are. Were you not the one who birthed us? Gave us life? We were created to bring peace to this world, and when we do, it will be glorious. Velma then asks, if you really think of me as your mother, would you mind putting me down? So, the Nanite King sets her down, stating, you must forgive my enthusiasm. I meant you no harm. She then asks, how can you say you mean me no harm with what happened in Albany? People I cared about are dead. The Nanite King tells her that they were human and he could not suffer them living. Their species is the sole thing keeping them from a global paradise. Soon, all the remaining humans on the planet will be eradicated, but she has a choice. Join them. There's no reason the mother of nanites should be destroyed. Velma then asks, what does he mean, join them? And the Nanite King explains that they will dismantle her, eradicate your immunity to the nanites, and rebuild you as one of us. You will die, yes, but only to be reborn in a higher form. Before she could answer, the lab doors open up as everyone in the compound storms in, and Shaggy shouts, get the hell away from my wife! Daphne calls out to Velma to get down, and as soon as she does, everyone opens fire. The bullets bouncing off of the Nanite King's body, and he says that their weaponry simply cannot slay that which truly does not live. We are not composed of your fragile flesh. No blood to spill, no bones to shatter. Just then, there's a loud humming sound as Fred tries to inject his nanites into the king, stating, we know exactly what you are, and because of that, only one of us can take you down. With a wave of his hand, all of the nanites that Fred was attempting to take fall to the ground, and the Nanite King says, Fred Jones, the vessel for the nanite fracture that seeks my end. However, there is a massive difference in power here. Your nanites can be effortlessly disabled. The Nanite King turns back to Velma, telling her, out of respect, we will give you 3 days to decide if you wish to accept our generous offer. You and your unborn child will live on, or you will perish. And just like that, the Nanite King begins to fade away into a cloud of nanites until he's all gone. Shaggy runs over to Velma, grabbing her, stating that everything will be okay. We will figure this out. She lets it aside, telling him actually surrendering herself might be their only hope. Just then, Quentin runs in, shouting to Velma that she needs to come quickly. It's Rufus, he's dying! Everyone hurries over to the medical wing, with Daisy explaining that the experimental antidote that he took is disrupting his cellular structure and degrading his mind. Velma looks at the now fleshy and gooey body of her brother Rufus and asks Quentin how long. Quentin says he's not sure. Days, hours, there's no way to tell. So then she says that she shouldn't care, should she? Rufus was a monster to her almost her entire life, treated her like something to be scraped off his shoe. And Quentin tells her perhaps, but he is still our brother. And Velma cries, yes, he is. So 2 days later, Shaggy, Scooby, Scrappy, and Cliffy pig out in the cafeteria enjoying the finer things of life. But as the four joke and laugh, Scrappy stops, stating, actually, I wanted to say that even with everything that's happened, it's been an honor knowing you guys. Shaggy says that before all of this, he used to be kind of a loner. Kind of weird that the end of the world has brought me to my best friends, you know? Scooby tells him they aren't just best friends. We are family now, Shaggy. As the four cheer, Daphne, Fred, and Velma walk in. And Daphne says that they all seem pretty jolly considering their situation. Shaggy turns, stating that the three of them have been locked away for the past 2 days. What's going on? So Velma says that it doesn't concern him, but Shaggy shouts, asking, could you say that with a little more contempt? If you want to dumb it down for me, just come out and say it. So she sighs, telling him that she's sorry. She's been lashing out and pushing him away. Between the shock of being pregnant and trying to find a way out of this nightmare, she's been rather cruel. So Shaggy hugs her, telling her, it's okay. I still love you with all my heart. Daphne then yells that they've got some nerve carrying on like that, leaving the rest of them out. So everyone pulls in for a group hug, and Fred watches and quietly walks away. Some time passes as Fred sits alone when Daphne walks up, stating that she's been looking for him. Is he ready? Fred says he's not really, but it is the right thing to do. It'd be so much easier if she just believed him when he says that he is the man that she knew, that he really does love. She stops him, telling him not to say that. As the silence fills the air, Daphne reaches over, placing her hand on Fred's, and smiles, only for the smile to quickly fade. As everyone gets ready for bed, the clock strikes 12, and as the Nanite King promised, he came for his answer. Velma gets out of bed, stating that she made a decision, and that decision is to go with him, but on one condition: allow the humans to live. There aren't many of them left, and they can do nothing to stop him, so what does it? But he interrupts her, stating that it does matter, because humans are a contagion, a poison. They will be eliminated. That's when Fred kicks in the door with Daphne, stating no, he's the one that's going to be eliminated. Daphne and Shaggy start shooting, and the Nanite King asks why do they persist in attempting to harm him? You have no chance. So Fred grabs onto the back of the Nanite King, telling him, we persist because of an unyielding will, fueled by an unyielding hope. The Nanite King asks if this is their plan. To set this Fred thing on me? You know the nanites within him are powerless to... Wait, what are you? As Fred breaks his body down into just nanites, he says, I'm returning home. Our faction is rejoining yours. The Nanite King asks, why would you? Fred tells him, because Velma finally developed a virus capable of infecting and disabling the global nanite swarm. A virus you willingly accepted so that you could pass it on. Fred's nanites swirl around and they attach themselves to the Nanite King, and he yells, no! This is not possible! This is not! And that's when a bright blue swirl fades into nothing, leaving only Fred's body behind. She runs over, shouting that he did it. The virus swept through and he coughs. I'm glad, but I'm sorry I'm leaving you again. Daphne says maybe Velma can, but Fred stops her. Velma's not a miracle worker. The nanites were the only thing keeping me alive. Now they're gone. You believe me now, right? It's really me. And I love you. Before Fred could finish, he draws his last breath, and Daphne cries as she kisses him goodbye. Months pass, and with the destruction of the Nanite King, people affected by the nanite plague slowly start to turn back to humans. Many were able to return to normal, but still some were left with permanent damage. Just as they were immune to the plague, there were still some immune to the cure, so there are still monsters roaming the earth. The complex began to create survival cities across the states to help those in need, and everyone seemed happy. Velma, with her son, in honor of her brother and Fred, named their son Frederick Rufus Rogers Dinkley. Daphne became Frederick's godmother, and Scooby-Doo became his godfather. Their mission is now to help locate survivors, and with any luck, help rehabilitate renegade monsters to help rebuild a better world on the ashes of the old. A better world. That was, after all, the goal of Project Elysium. Now let's see if they can get it right this time.
And there you have it. Scooby Apocalypse is concluded. Now, I want to thank each and every one of you guys who have watched this series. This is actually probably one of the weirdest series that we've gone from start to finish here on the Comicstorian channel. When Dan and I did the first arc, we were like, there's no way anyone's going to watch this. It's Scooby-Doo. And it turned into one of our best performing videos for a very long time. And even when it finally started to have drop off, there was a very loyal group of you that would come back just to watch Scooby Apocalypse. We tried to turn it into a monthly release, and then we tried to do a bunch of them back to back, and there was just so many problems trying to work Scooby Apocalypse into our schedule that we would sometimes go months without having an episode, but you guys were always there for it. And I really appreciate that. I thank you guys all from the bottom of my heart for helping us bring to light Scooby Apocalypse. Just an out there crazy idea that DC tried to pull off. And it's a great book. It really is. Let me know what you thought about the whole story of this down below. And if you want more stuff like this, then let me know in the comments. Maybe we'll find some more weird stuff or out there stuff or something that we can move on to next. Either way, I hope you guys enjoyed the ride. I know I did. And I'll see you next time right here at Comicstorian.